On Monday, May 27, 2023, at 3 a.m. in Busan, South Korea, the police received a call from a taxi driver who was clearly very scared and nervous. He told them that he had just finished a trip in which he had dropped off a girl with her bag. The girl had waved to him on the street, and he stopped for her like any normal customer. She got in and asked him to take her to a forested area next to the Nakdong River. The driver had no problem with the location. He had dropped off many people there before. Although the ride was normal at first, just like any other trip he had done before, everything changed after they arrived. The girl got out of the car and went to retrieve her bag from the trunk. At that moment, the driver noticed something leaking from the bag onto the floor of the trunk. It was wet and had a sticky texture. The world was dark, but after examining it carefully, he confirmed that the liquid on the floor of the trunk was blood, her blood. She didn't notice that he had seen anything. As I said, it was dark, and she could barely see the driver's face. He remained calm, not showing any reaction, and after saying goodbye to her, he watched as she walked towards the trees. She kept walking until she disappeared into the dense forest. The driver got into his car, drove away from the scene, and stopped in a well-lit area. He checked again and confirmed that the substance in the trunk was indeed blood. Shocked and horrified, he did what any normal person would do. He called the police. His story immediately caught their attention, making them deeply concerned. Within minutes, officers arrived at the location he described. After a brief search, they discovered mutilated parts of a human body. For those who are seeing me for the first time, welcome from inside the event. I talk about everything strange and mysterious on planet Earth. Today, I will tell you the story of a girl named Jung Yoo-jung, who once prepared videos about crime stories, just like you are watching now. But what she did shocked the entire world. The forest where the girl had entered was extremely dense. At night, it was pitch black, an ideal place to hide a body. But thanks to the taxi driver and the information he provided, the police were able to track down the girl and locate her residence within a few hours of the report. 3 hours after Jung had stepped out of the taxi, she was arrested. The police identified her by her facial features, which were captured by surveillance cameras in the area where she had gotten into the taxi. Now they had a report from a witness, camera footage showing her carrying the bag, and a dismembered body found at the location she had visited. This was enough evidence for them to obtain a search warrant for her residence under South Korean law. There is an important legal principle in South Korea. It is extremely rare for the names and details of crime victims to be revealed to the media. This law has been in place since 1991. However, there is also a law that allows authorities to expose criminals who commit particularly violent crimes. They do this to ensure that society is aware and can remain cautious, preventing similar crimes from happening again. So, who is Jung Yoo-jung? And what did she do that led the police to publicly expose her identity to the entire world? Jung Yoo-jung was 23 years old, born in 1999. From the information collected about her, authorities learned that her parents were often too busy to care for her during her childhood, so she was primarily raised by her grandmother. She attended a private high school, where she gained a reputation as a strange, quiet girl. She rarely spoke, always sat at the back of the class, and remained isolated from everyone. Although she was never bullied or mistreated at school, she showed no interest in making friends or socializing. Anyone who tried to talk to her would receive nothing but a silent, unsettling stare in return. After graduating, Jung remained unemployed for 5 years. In South Korea, securing a job requires passing a civil service exam, which includes demonstrating proficiency in English. This was her biggest obstacle. Her English skills were extremely poor, preventing her from passing the exam. I'm sharing this background so you can understand how an ordinary person can begin to deteriorate mentally, how isolation and loneliness can drive someone to madness. In recent years, Jung became increasingly reclusive. She barely left her house and had no social interactions. She spent most of her time watching crime documentaries, reading books and novels about criminal cases, and obsessing over real-life crime stories on Korean television. But since Jung was not a normal person, her interest took a dark turn. She became fixated on the minds of murderers and criminals. A few days into the investigation, the police uncovered more shocking details about Jung. When they accessed her phone, they were stunned. There were no contacts saved in her phone and no messages received from anyone. This was undeniable proof of her complete isolation from the outside world, but the most disturbing discovery was what she had been searching for online. In the months leading up to the crime, Jung had been researching topics related to murder. Her search history included phrases like, "How to kill someone without leaving a body," "The perfect crime." At first, she denied any involvement in the murder. She claimed that she had been threatened. Someone had forced her to dispose of the body under the threat of death. But of course, the police didn't believe her. Eventually, they brought in her family to visit her in custody. It was only after her family pleaded with her to tell the truth that she finally confessed. She said, "Yes, I am the one who committed the crime, and I had no reason or motive. I was not able to control myself. I wanted to know how it feels to kill someone." At that moment, the police, investigators, and everyone listening were shocked. If she had killed purely out of curiosity, with no personal connections or acquaintances, then who was the victim, and how did she choose them? That's when Jung began revealing her plan, one that had started 3 months before the crime. She had spent hours searching the internet, looking for anyone to kill. She decided to talk to random people, and whoever worked out would become her victim. Since she had no friends or acquaintances, she turned to the internet. She signed up for a well-known website where people teach English, pretending to be a mother looking for a tutor for her daughter. Jung continued reaching out to people until, on May 24, 2023, an English teacher responded. They agreed to meet 2 days later. On May 26, Jung told the teacher that she would send her daughter to the lesson. The teacher agreed. Unaware of the trap that had been set, Jung then ordered a school uniform online. On the day of the meeting, she dressed in the uniform and went to the teacher's house, pretending to be the little girl. She carried a knife hidden in her pocket. When she arrived, the teacher suspected nothing. Jung, standing at just 1.4 meters tall, appeared small enough for the deception to work. Once inside, Jung confirmed that the teacher lived alone. Then, without hesitation, she pulled out the knife and murdered her in cold blood after ensuring the victim was dead. She moved on to the next phase of her plan. At midnight, she returned home, retrieved a large travel bag, and stopped by a supermarket. She bought knives, plastic clips, detergents, and garbage bags, supplies needed to dispose of the body. Surveillance cameras later captured her at the supermarket. The chilling part, she looked happy. Her steps, her posture, everything about her body language suggested excitement, as if she hadn't just committed a brutal murder. Jung then returned to the teacher's apartment. There, she dismembered the body, placing some of the remains in the travel bag. At 3 a.m. on May 27, she called a taxi, but her mistake was failing to properly wrap the body parts in the bag. Upon arriving at the forest, she buried the remains, hoping to stage the crime as a disappearance. To further the deception, she took the teacher's phone, her ID, and her bag. Jung planned to return to the teacher's apartment to collect the rest of the body. But by then, the taxi driver had already alerted the police. Hours later, she was arrested. During questioning, she confessed everything. She said, "I wish I could have committed the perfect crime." Silence filled the room. In South Korea, authorities use a psychological evaluation to assess mental illness. A score below 15 indicates a normal individual, while a score above 25 suggests severe mental instability or criminal tendencies. For reference, notorious serial killer Kang Ho-sun, who even murdered his own mother, scored 27 on the test. Jung scored 28. Her result deeply worried investigators. They concluded that if she hadn't been caught, she would have become a serial killer. She had no prior mental health diagnosis and a completely clean criminal record, making her the perfect hidden predator. Psychologists suggested that Jung may have specifically chosen the teacher because of jealousy. She had repeatedly failed her English exam, while the victim was fluent. This subconscious resentment could have contributed to her choice of target, the investigation, and sentencing. With her confession, the taxi driver's testimony, surveillance footage, DNA evidence at the crime scene, blood found in her apartment, and the leaked blood in the taxi, the case was sealed later. Standing before the court, she offered an apology. "I apologize to the victim and her family. I certainly wasn't in my right mind." Despite her words, the entire nation was horrified. This case caused a major uproar in South Korea, not only because of its brutality, but also because there was no real motive. Her only reason was curiosity. Although South Korea has the death penalty, the last execution was carried out in 1997. Currently, more than 60 people are on death row, but their sentences have not been enforced. The police stated that the investigation was still ongoing. Psychological evaluations were still being conducted, and only after they were completed would her final sentence be determined. However, they confirmed that this was a first-degree murder case. Initially, her sentence was set at 5 years, but authorities suggested it would likely be significantly increased after legal procedures were completed. The bigger picture. Some in the media argued that Jung's obsession with crime stories had played a role in her descent into murder. I say, that's the wrong perspective. Crime stories aren't to blame. What matters is how people engage with them. True crime raises awareness, helping people stay vigilant. Stories like this teach valuable lessons. Don't isolate yourself for too long. Humans need social connections. Never trust strangers online, and never meet them alone in private places. Be aware of suspicious purchases. If someone buys knives, plastic clips, and garbage bags all at once, it's worth noting. People who watch true crime don't do it to admire killers. They do it to learn, understand, and protect themselves. So, what do you think? This was our story for today. I hope you found it insightful. See you next time. Bye.